الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. كيف حالكم؟ الحمد لله. Beloved brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, this evening we are still in the chapter of Kitab al-Tahara, the chapter of purification, of cleanliness. And this evening our concept that we are looking at is one that I think many of us are familiar with, so it would be good revision for us inshallah. It is the concept of istinja. So before we go into the issue of wudu, ablution, it's important that we understand the principles around istinja. So when we go into the concept of istinja, to define it, in fiqh, istinja is the removal of filth from the private parts after one has seen to a bodily need, an urge. And so when one urinates or defecates, there would be najasa that comes out, and the istinja is the process of removing it. This definition in reality is what the fuqaha, the jurists, use as the objective of how to accomplish it, of what should be accomplished. So you don't actually have in particular an agreed upon method of istinja across the board. You find that ulama differ. Okay, some might say it is recommended to do this or to use that. But the objective for everyone is the same. That the dirt, the najasa, must be removed. And I thought, let me just pull on a few points which are recommended with istinja. So firstly, we recognize the context that a person has gone to the toilet, number one or number two, and now they need to purify themselves. And many times we pride ourselves as Muslims, that mashallah, we are Muslim, we make istinja. There are even sometimes jokes that we tell. We say, okay, no, that is the criterion of a believer, that they know how to clean themselves after going to the toilet. So let's just remind ourselves of the etiquette and principles from a fiqh perspective. Firstly, when one cleans oneself, when one performs the istinja, you must use your left hand, right? An important principle there. Then secondly, we have from hadith a recommendation of cleaning yourself at least thrice. So this number of 3 comes in fiqh. And so we can apply this if you are going to be wiping yourself, right? If you're going to wipe yourself, then you should wipe at least thrice. And in many instances, to perform istinja might mean, especially if you have defecated, number 2, you might have to go beyond 3. Then it is recommended, the ulama have written, that you do it in odd numbers, 5 or 7 and so forth, 9. You are permitted to use various substances, and particularly within the Shafi'i madhab, toilet paper is recognized as a permitted substance, something that you can use for istinja. It is recommended, however, that we use water. So originally, water wasn't the mechanism that was used for, prescribed for istinja. But today, water is recommended because the ulama, the fuqaha, indicate it is the preferred substance because you are able to clean the most with it. So water is preferred. And then we come to point 5, a very important point in fiqh. And even many people have often come to me regarding this very same point. At what point in your mind do you acknowledge that you have cleaned enough? This is a very interesting mas'ala in fiqh. How sure should you be that you have cleaned sufficiently. Because if it comes to urine, urine can be mixed with water and we might not be able to see it anymore. But how sure is the believer that they've cleaned themselves sufficiently? And also, what is excused for the believer? If you have gone to the toilet, you made a number 2, and you've performed istinja, to what extent can you acknowledge, or can the believer acknowledge, that I've cleaned adequately for the purposes of ibadah? And so sometimes individuals become fixated. It's quite common. They feel that I haven't cleaned enough, and then they want to repeat it. Or they are about to enter their salah and they feel, you know what, I didn't clean enough. I wonder if I cleaned enough. And so the ulama write about this, and they say we must also be careful of waswasa, this that shaitan tries to distract us. So the fuqaha have written that you must clean to the extent that you feel visibly and smell-wise there is nothing remaining. So visibly, and you do not smell anything coming from your body, and you do not see anything. That would give you enough surety, but you do not have to investigate beyond that, because then we go into a category of delaying your ibadah. Then number 6, it is not a requirement to clean inside of the anus. Point 7, and this applies to ladies, if the lady isn't sure if the discharge has mixed with urine, then it is better for her to wash the area. And then the last point is that when we study istinja, which we will do next week as well, inshallah, we come across the 3 stones method, and I will unpack that next week as well. But the 3 stones method, of course, is from Sunnah, and this is also permitted. Just some points as I close, inshallah. The believer must be very careful regarding the splashing that occurs at the toilet. Very important point. Some of us become quite negligent as well. So, when we talk about the splashing, we get the mas'ala of, can a man stand and urinate? Right. So in fiqh, this is makruh, and some have said it is haram. Some ulama said impermissible completely, and others have said this is disliked. What's the reason for it? The issue of splashing. That if a man stands and urinates, in all likelihood there's going to be splashing, a splashback. And that najasa then transfers to the body and the clothing. And we know with urine, if it is mixed with water and splashes back, you may not be aware of it. You may not be able to see it. So, firstly, the ruling of standing and urinating, we take the general ruling in fiqh that it is makruh because of splashing back. But even for a person who is now seated, the person which we should all be, sitting and urinating, or crouching and urinating, or sitting on the toilet, and we are using the toilet. Now it is the time for istinja. We must be very cautious of this water that splashes back, because najasa has entered that water. So if you are cleaning, performing the istinja, both male and female must be wary of water that splashes back up. So be very cautious in terms of that process. Right. And then we also look at another point, that when you have used your hand for istinja, you now need to wash your hand afterwards. So your left hand must be washed, and the requirement in fiqh is that all visible signs of najasa are gone. And the ulama have also written that it is then perhaps better that you also wash your hands with soap after you have used that hand. And in particular, they write in the fiqh books that if you are going to clean you clean yourself with your left hand, and you would use your middle finger of your left hand to clean as well. You ensure that this is all cleaned thoroughly afterwards. And then just a final point regarding males. So males, after they urinate and they perform istinja, a common scenario is that men sometimes can have a scenario, a situation where urine still drips out afterwards. So the men must be aware of that. They have to ensure that after they've used the toilet, a lot of the urine is out, and after they feel that that is completely out, they then perform the istinja. And then we talk in the madahib also about what is the amount of dirt that is excusable. So let's say a man performed istinja, he went to the toilet, he performed istinja, and he took wudu, he performs his salah. After the salah, he sees in his underwear there's a mark. So something came out. What would be the amount of excusable najasa? Do we know? Good question, mashallah. We're practicing for many years. Good question. What is the amount of excusable dirt? At what point would you say, oh no, I need to re-perform wudu and re-perform salah? Or when can we say, no, the salah is still valid? So I'll quickly give this and I'll close with this as well. If the dirt, we take the Shafi'i madhab, the Shafi'i madhab says, if the dirt is discernible, you can see it, then the najasa invalidates it. The Shafi'i madhab is quite strict regarding this, meaning if you can see the dirt evidently, then meaning it's discernible, it has the characteristics that you can see it and you can smell it. If it holds those qualities, that it is that amount, then it would be best that, of course, that you change the attire, you clean it, and that the ibadah must be repeated. We are talking about normal, not people who are ill, okay? People who are ill have other conditions go into a different category. And then in the Hanafi madhab, there's a little bit more leniency. The Hanafi madhab allows, some ulama in the Hanafi madhab have indicated they allow a maximum of 5 centimeters or 5 grams. 5 centimeters if it's liquid that spreads out, or 5 grams. But even with that, they put the ruling of makruh. It would be best not to have it. So we close into this evening, inshallah, mentioning that the istinja is wajib. It must be done before wudu. The objective is to remove filth, and water is preferred, inshallah. Any questions? Jazakallah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi wa